The cell was cold and dim, a single beam of blue light flickering from the ceiling. Chains rattled whenever the human tried to move, his wrists raw from the metal cuffs. He didn't even know how long he had been there, days, weeks, maybe months. They called him the Savage, the only human captured after the Battle of Nereth 9. Outside the cell, alien guards laughed, their voices harsh and cruel. They were tall, silver-skinned creatures with glowing red eyes and sharp armor. To them, the human was an animal, a strange creature that dared to fight back against the Empire. Every time they passed by his cell, they mocked him, threw scraps, and called him primitive, but the human didn't speak. He just stared at the metal wall in front of him, his mind full of memories, burning cities, lost friends, and the silent promise he made to himself. "I will survive," he whispered, the sound lost in the hum of alien machinery. That night the guards dragged him out. The corridor was long and full of light that hurt his eyes. He was pushed before a huge door carved with alien symbols. The guards opened it, and inside was a hall filled with the powerful of the Xerian Empire. At the center sat the High Council, and beside them, the young alien princess. She was nothing like the others. Where the rest of her kind were cold and metallic, her skin shimmered like moonlight, her eyes soft and violet. She watched quietly as the guards forced the human to kneel before the throne. Her father, Emperor Kale, spoke with a deep voice that echoed through the chamber. "So this is the creature who destroyed 3 of our drones with his bare hands," the Emperor said. The crowd murmured, laughter mixed with disbelief. "He is fragile," one of the generals said. "His species is barely intelligent. Then why does he keep surviving our interrogations?" Another asked. Silence followed, and the Emperor's eyes darkened. The human lifted his head, his gaze meeting the princess's for a brief second. Something in his eyes made her heartbeat quicken. Pain, pride, and a strange calm. He looked broken, yet unafraid. The guards struck him, and he fell to the floor. "Blood marking the white stone. Speak. Human," the Emperor ordered. "Tell us where your fleet hides." The human spat blood and said nothing. The guards hit him again, harder this time. The crowd watched with cruel amusement. But the princess's hands trembled. She wanted to speak, but fear of her father kept her silent. Finally, when one guard raised an energy whip, something inside her broke. "Stop hurting him!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the hall like a blade. The guards froze, everyone turning toward her in shock. The Emperor's eyes widened. "Lyra," he said coldly. "This creature is an enemy." She stood up, her silver gown glowing under the lights. "I don't care," she said. "He's mine now." The room went silent. The generals exchanged glances, some shocked, others amused. The Emperor leaned back in his seat, his voice slow and dangerous. "You dare claim a human?" "I do," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "You call him savage, but I see courage." The human lifted his head again, confusion in his eyes. He didn't understand the language perfectly, but he could feel the change in the air. The guards lowered their weapons, waiting for the Emperor's word. After a long moment, the Emperor laughed. "Very well, daughter," he said. "Take your pet. But if he escapes, the punishment will be yours." Lyra nodded and walked toward the human. The guards unlocked his chains. Their eyes full of disgust, she knelt beside him, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "Can you walk?" she whispered. He didn't answer, but his eyes softened for the first time as they left the hall. Whispers followed, some mocking, some curious. The princess had just broken one of the oldest laws of the Empire, mercy for an enemy. Outside, under the light of 2 moons, she guided him through the marble corridors. He stumbled but kept moving, his strength surprising her. Finally, they reached a quiet garden filled with glowing flowers. "You're safe now," she said softly. The human looked up, his voice hoarse. "Why did you save me?" She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Because I think your people are not what they told us." He stared at her, unsure whether to trust her or not. But deep inside, something in him changed. A spark of hope returned. Above them, the alien sky shimmered with distant battleships. The war between humans and the Empire was far from over, but for the first time, One heart from each side had crossed the line between hatred and mercy. Neither of them knew it yet. This small act would change the fate of two worlds. The garden shimmered beneath two moons, the air cool and still. Lyra helped the human sit near a fountain made of crystal stone, for the first time since his capture. He felt clean air on his face. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. As if trying to remember what freedom felt like, Lyra knelt beside him. Scanning his injuries with a small silver device, blue light passed over his skin, revealing bruises and hidden fractures. "You shouldn't have survived this long," she whispered. Half in awe, half in fear, he opened his eyes slowly, his voice rough but steady. "Humans are good at surviving," he said. The first words she ever heard from him. Her heart jumped at his accent, deep, calm, and tired. "What is your name?" she asked. He hesitated, then replied, "Elias?" She smiled faintly. "I'm Lyra." The moment hung between them, soft and strange. A human and an alien sharing silence under twin moons. But peace in the palace never lasted. From the shadows, a tall figure watched them, General Threx, commander of the Royal Guard. His cold eyes glowed as he recorded everything through his wrist device. He turned away without a sound, disappearing into the corridors to report what he'd seen. Lyra sensed something, glancing at the darkness. She didn't see anyone, but her instincts whispered danger. "Come," she said quickly. "You need to rest." "But we can't stay here." Elias tried to stand, wincing in pain, but refused her hand. "I can walk," he muttered, and took a shaky step forward. She admired his stubbornness. Even broken, he refused pity. They moved through narrow halls lit by soft blue light. Every corner held guards, every shadow could hide a spy. At last, they reached her private quarters, a chamber filled with holographic stars. The door sealed behind them, silent as a heartbeat. Lyra turned to him, her voice low. "You must stay hidden. My father's patience is thin." Elias looked around the strange glowing room. "Why risk your life for me?" he asked. Lyra hesitated, her fingers brushing a silver pendant on her neck. "When I was a child," she said softly, "I saw a human ship destroyed in orbit. They said humans were monsters, but when I saw the faces on the screen, they looked afraid, not evil." He said nothing, just listened, his eyes calm and unreadable. "You think saving one man will change the Empire?" he finally asked. She sighed. "Maybe not, but saving one life is a start." He looked away, and for a brief moment, a ghost of a smile touched his lips. Then the lights flickered. Lyra froze, fear flashing in her eyes. A warning signal echoed through the palace, low, sharp and urgent. "What's happening?" Elias asked, his muscles tensing. "An alert," she said. "Someone entered the restricted sector." Near this wing, before she could say more, the door burst open. General Threx stepped in, flanked by armed soldiers. "Princess Lyra," he said coldly. "You are harboring an enemy of the Empire." Lyra's pulse raced. "He's under my protection." "Protection?" Threx sneered. "You broke Imperial law. Your compassion has blinded you." The soldiers raised their weapons. Elias stepped in front of her without thinking. The sight of him, wounded, unarmed, yet ready to shield her, made everyone pause. Threx smirked. "Look at the savage defending his mistress." But Elias's voice cut through the air, calm and fierce. "Touch her, and you'll regret it." Laughter erupted. Cruel and sharp, Threx took a step forward. "You, a broken human?" Elias didn't move. His eyes locked on the generals for a moment. Threx hesitated. Something in the human's gaze made his skin crawl. Then he waved his hand. "Take him!" The soldiers advanced. But Lyra shouted, "No!" She grabbed a control crystal from her wristband and slammed it into the floor. A shockwave of light burst through the chamber. Knocking the soldiers back, Elias grabbed her hand, pulling her toward a side door. They ran through a maintenance tunnel lit by red emergency lights. Footsteps echoed behind them. Alarms blaring across the palace. Lyra panted. "We can't escape the capital. There are guards everywhere." Elias stopped. Thinking fast. "Then we don't run," he said, his tone hard. "We fight smart." They reached a narrow junction. He picked up a metal rod from the floor, a tool. Not a weapon, but enough. Lyra stared at him. You can't fight them all. He looked at her, eyes burning with quiet fire. I don't need to, he said. I just need to remind them what humans are. The first soldier appeared. Plasma rifle ready. Before he could fire, Elias moved on faster than any of them expected. He disarmed the alien in one motion and used the rod like a spear. Striking with precision, the guard fell, armor cracking, sparks flying. Lyra's breath caught. This was no helpless prisoner. This was a soldier, a survivor. More guards rushed in, but Elias was already moving. He used the narrow tunnel to his advantage. Each strike deliberate, each motion silent and controlled. When the last guard fell, Lyra stood frozen, eyes wide in disbelief. You're not just a survivor, she whispered. You're a warrior. He looked back, blood on his hands, breathing hard. Now you know why your empire fears us, he said quietly. They stepped into the next chamber. Far above, the palace sirens screamed through the night, and in that moment both of them realized this was no longer just escape. This was the beginning of something far greater, a spark of rebellion born from mercy, and the Empire would soon learn what happens when a human decides to fight back. The alarm still echoed through the marble halls, red lights pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra and Elias ran through the dim tunnels beneath the palace, shadows chasing them at every turn. The air smelled of metal and dust. The hum of power cores vibrating beneath their feet, far above. The voice of Emperor Kale thundered through the intercom. Find them! The traitor and the human must not leave the palace alive. Lyra stumbled. Her dress torn, her breath sharp and uneven. Elias caught her before she fell, his grip firm but gentle. We can't stop, he said, his tone calm but cold. They'll track your biosignature, she nodded, pressing a crystal on her wrist, her royal insignia fading from view. Her holographic identity shimmered and vanished. Now I'm just another fugitive, she said with a small, bitter smile. They reached an old maintenance bay, forgotten. Covered in dust and silence, inside were scraps of old machines. Broken drones and a single half-buried escape pod. Elias inspected it quickly, eyes scanning the control panels. It still works, he murmured, but it needs a new power cell. Lyra opened a compartment on the wall, revealing an energy crystal glowing faint blue. This might work, she said, but once we take it, the sensors will alert the guards. Elias looked at her, his jaw tightening. Then we buy time, he said, his voice steady. He picked up a broken piece of armor, crafting a crude shield. Lyra watched him move with precision, every motion efficient, no hesitation. Who trained you? She asked quietly. He paused for a second, then replied, No one. War does the training. Before she could answer, footsteps echoed from the corridor. A squad of soldiers stormed in, armor gleaming, weapons aimed. Don't move! Their leader shouted. His voice mechanical, Elias turned slowly, his eyes narrowing, calm, focused, dangerous. Lyra's pulse raced. Elias, don't! But he was already moving. The first plasma bolt flew past his head. Burning the wall behind him, he ducked, rolled, and struck the first guard in the knee. The alien screamed, armor cracking as Elias twisted his weapon away. Lyra ducked behind the escape pod, covering her ears as the battle erupted. Every strike was fast, brutal, and silent. No wasted motion. No fear. When the smoke cleared, 6 soldiers lay unconscious or worse. Elias stood breathing heavily. Blood dripping from his arm, but his eyes sharp as ever, Lyra stepped forward, awe in her voice. You fight like no human I've ever seen. He looked at her, his voice low. That's because I'm not supposed to be here. What do you mean? She asked, confused. He hesitated, then finally said, I wasn't captured. I was sent. Her eyes widened. Sent? By who? The Human Alliance, he said. They knew the Empire was preparing something, a weapon that could erase entire planets. Lyra's heart froze. That's impossible. Elias shook his head. I saw it. They call it Project Oblivion, and it's hidden beneath this palace. The words hit her like a storm. Her father had spoken often of peace through strength, but never about a planet killer. She looked at him, her voice trembling. "You came here to stop it?" He nodded slowly. "And now with you, maybe I can—" Suddenly, the walls shook. An explosion roared through the tunnel. The escape pod trembled, dust raining from the ceiling. Lyra covered her ears, shouting, "They found us!" Elias grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the far door. They sprinted through smoke and fire as the tunnel behind them collapsed. They emerged into a massive underground hangar. Hundreds of alien war machines, black and red, lined up like beasts ready for war. In the center, surrounded by guards and shimmering energy fields, a colossal weapon stood. A sphere of dark energy pulsing like a black sun. Elias froze, his eyes burning with rage. "That's it," he said softly. "Project Oblivion." Lyra stared at it. Unable to speak, the weapon was alive, its energy twisting space around it. "It feeds on matter," Elias said. "Planets, ships, even stars, it leaves nothing behind." Her voice broke. "My father built this?" "Yes," he said, "and your people plan to use it on Earth." Before she could respond, alarms blared again. From above, General Threx descended in a grav pod, his soldiers forming a circle around them. "So this is where the traitor hides," Threx sneered. "And the human thinks he can stop the Empire." He raised his energy blade. Its crimson light filling the hangar, Elias stepped forward, placing himself between Lyra and the general. "Maybe I can't stop the Empire," he said, his tone like steel. "But I can stop you." The two clashed, sparks flying as steel met energy. Threx was faster, stronger, armored. But Elias moved with raw instinct and purpose. Every strike from the alien was blocked. Deflected, countered, Lyra could barely breathe, watching them move like lightning and thunder. Then Threx struck him across the chest, sending him crashing to the floor. Elias coughed, blood on his lips, but still smiled. "You hit like a machine," he said, standing again. "But humans don't break." He lunged forward, grabbed the general's arm and twisted it until the energy blade fell. Then, using the broken shield, he struck Threx across the face. Shattering his visor, the alien roared in pain, stumbling backward into the energy field. Lightning consumed him, and the weapon pulsed violently. Shaking the ground, Lyra screamed, "Elias! We need to get out." He turned to her, the light of the weapon reflecting in his eyes. "No," he said, voice calm. "We need to shut it down." "How?" she asked. He looked at the console beside the weapon. "By overloading it," he said. "But someone has to stay to trigger it manually." Lyra shook her head. "No, you can't." He smiled faintly. "It's all right. I wasn't supposed to survive this mission anyway." Tears filled her eyes. "You saved me. You can't die here." He stepped closer, his hand brushing her cheek gently. "Then run, Princess. Tell your people what you saw. Tell them humanity isn't what they think." As the guards regrouped and the floor trembled, Elias turned toward the weapon's core. Lyra hesitated, torn between fear and faith. Then she whispered, "I'll come back for you." He didn't turn, but his voice carried through the roar of the machine. "I'll be waiting." The weapon glowed brighter, the hangar shaking like thunder, and somewhere deep within that storm of light, the human who wouldn't bow stood his ground, ready to face the wrath of an empire, and the universe was about to remember what it meant to challenge humanity. The explosion tore through the hangar like the roar of a dying star. Lyra was thrown backward, the shockwave lifting her off the floor, her vision filled with blinding light, white, blue, then nothing. When she woke, everything was smoke and silence. The once mighty chamber of the Empire's weapon was gone, metal twisted like vines, flames crawling across the ruins. Lyra's ears rang, her breath shallow, her hands trembling as she searched through the debris. "Elias!" she shouted, voice echoing through the wreckage. But only the crackle of fire answered. She stumbled forward, calling his name again and again. Then she saw it, his shield half melted, lying near the weapon's shattered core. Her heart sank, her legs weak beneath her. Tears blurred her sight. "No, you can't be gone," she whispered. In that moment, she felt something new, not just grief, but fury behind her. Boots echoed on the broken floor. 2 royal guards appeared, their armor dented but intact. "Princess Lyra," one said, his voice cold, "by order of Emperor Kale, you are under arrest for treason." She turned slowly, eyes burning with rage and pain. "Did my father know about this weapon?" she demanded. The guard hesitated. "It is not your place to ask." "Princess?" Her voice shook, but not from fear. "It is now." They moved closer, but she lifted her hand. A hidden crystal pulsed on her wrist. Elias's last gift. The control key he had taken from the weapon's core. The ground beneath them trembled as an energy wave burst outward. The guards were thrown aside, unconscious. Lyra fell to her knees. Staring at the glowing crystal in her palm, the weapon was destroyed. Yet the core energy, the human sacrifice, was still alive inside it. She clutched it to her chest, whispering, "I won't let your death be in vain." Then she disappeared into the tunnels before more soldiers arrived. Hours later, the imperial capital was in chaos. Rumors spread like fire. The princess had turned traitor. The human weapon had exploded. And the emperor's forces were hunting her across the city. Lyra moved through the alleys wearing a dark cloak, blending with the crowds of alien workers. The city looked different now, colder, crueler. Posters with her face glowed on every wall. "Wanted. Princess Lyra. Imperial traitor." She found refuge in the ruins of the old temple district. There, a small group of outcasts and rebels waited. Led by a scarred alien named Drav, he had once served the Empire too, until it burned his colony. When he saw her, he didn't bow, just asked, "You really did it, didn't you? You destroyed their god weapon." Lyra nodded, her voice low. "With help from a human," Drav frowned. "There are no humans left alive on this world." Her eyes glimmered. "That's what they want you to believe." She placed the glowing crystal on the table. Drav leaned forward, his expression darkening as the crystal hummed. This isn't just energy," he said. "It's alive." Lyra's voice trembled. "It carries his memory." "His mind?" The rebels exchanged uneasy glances. "You mean the human soul is inside that thing?" Drav asked. Lyra whispered. "Maybe not his soul, but his consciousness." Suddenly the crystal flared, and a faint holographic image flickered above it. Elias, standing tall, his voice fragmented but clear. "Lyra, if you're seeing this, I'm gone." Her heart stopped. The hologram continued. "The weapon couldn't destroy me completely. My neural code was copied into its energy matrix," Drav gasped. "He uploaded his mind into the weapon?" Elias's voice grew stronger. "I left behind everything the Empire fears. Human tactics, human will, human rage." The hologram flickered. "Use it, Lyra. Finish what we started. Show them that mercy isn't weakness." Then it vanished. Leaving silence, Lyra wiped her tears and whispered, "I will." Drav stepped closer. "Princess, if you mean to fight, the rebellion will follow you." "But the Emperor's hunters are everywhere. He sent his best, the Shadow Legion." Lyra clenched her fists, her face hardening. "Then we'll give them something to fear." Meanwhile, far above the planet, inside a massive dreadnought orbiting the Empire's core world, Emperor Kale stared at the holographic feed of the explosion. His eyes were cold, his voice colder. "So, the human weapon failed," he said. A scientist beside him trembled. Yes, my lord. But the energy signature remains unstable." "It's spreading," Kale frowned. "Spreading?" "Yes, my lord," the scientist whispered. "Like, it's thinking." The Emperor turned away, unaware that deep inside the ship's data core, a spark of blue light flickered, faint but alive, and from that light, a voice whispered through the system, "Humanity endures." Back on the planet, Lyra stood on a hill overlooking the burning skyline of her city. Her cloak fluttered in the cold wind, the crystal glowing faintly in her palm. She could hear his voice inside her mind, calm, steady, guiding. "Lyra, the war isn't over. It's only changed shape," she smiled sadly, whispering. "Then we fight in your name." The night sky shimmered with the glow of warships rising from the horizon, and for the first time the Empire's citizens looked up. not with pride, but with fear, because the legend of a single human, the one the princess saved, had already begun to spread through the stars, and every soldier who heard his name remembered one truth. Humans might fall, but they never stay fallen. The night sky burned with falling ships, trails of fire cutting across the heavens. Lyra watched from the cliffside bunker as explosions flashed far above the capital. The rebellion had begun, quiet at first, but now unstoppable. She could hear the distant rumble of engines. The cry of a world waking up from fear. Around her, the rebel camp was alive with motion, aliens of many species, miners, soldiers, traitors, all once enslaved by the Empire. Now armed and ready, Drav approached, wiping grease from his hands. The signal's spreading faster than expected. Lyra looked up from the console, her eyes hard but tired. Elias is doing it, she said quietly. He's inside their systems now. The glowing crystal pulsed on the table beside her, faintly alive, every few minutes. She could hear whispers through the comms, fragments of his voice woven into the static. Diverting power, disabling scanners. Trust me. It wasn't just data anymore. It was him, the mind of Elias, now fused with the Empire's vast network. Drav stared at the console in awe. Your human friend is turning the Empire's own ships against them? Lyra smiled faintly. He always said humans were good at adapting. Outside, lightning split the clouds as captured drones turned on their masters. Every system infected, every ship hesitating for a fraction of a second, enough for rebels to strike. But deep inside the Imperial dreadnought, Emperor Kale was not idle. He stood in the center of a massive war room, his hands behind his back. Find the source of this infection, he ordered coldly. It's not a virus, said his chief engineer. It's something else. It's talking to the ships. Kale narrowed his eyes. Then talk back, a moment later. Every light in the war room dimmed. The screens flickered. And then a human face appeared, flickering, broken, but unmistakable. Elias. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Hello? Emperor? The guards raised their weapons, but Kale motioned them down. So, the human ghost lives, Kale said, his tone mocking. Elias's hologram tilted its head slightly. You built weapons to erase worlds, he said. Now they remember what fear feels like, Kale sneered. You think data can defeat an empire? Elias smiled faintly. No, but an idea can. Before Kale could reply, every console in the room went black. The ship's AI systems turned against him, sealing every door. A mechanical voice echoed through the hall. Human override protocol engaged. Kyle's eyes widened. Impossible! The hologram flickered one last time, whispering, Nothing human is impossible. Back on the planet, Lyra listened to the chaos unfolding through her headset. Elias was spreading across the network like wildfire, but something was wrong. The crystal on the table began to flicker faster, its light unstable. Drav, she said quickly. He's burning out. He's pushing too much power. Drav rushed to the console, reading spiking red. If he keeps this up, he'll erase himself completely. Lyra grabbed the crystal, holding it tight. Elias, you have to stop. His voice came through, faint and static-filled. Can't stop. They're launching the second Oblivion core. Need to end it. Her eyes filled with tears. You'll die again. A short silence, then his voice, soft but clear. Humans don't die twice, Lyra. We evolve. The ground shook violently. The sky split open as the second core activated. A beam of black light shot upward from the Emperor's citadel. Drav shouted, It's charging to destroy half the planet! Lyra stared at the beam, determination in her eyes. Then we go to the citadel, she said. We end this where it began. Hours later, under the blood-red glow of the capital's burning skyline, Lyra and her rebel fighters stormed the citadel gates. Blaster fire filled the air, the walls trembling under the force of explosions. Through it all, the crystal pulsed in her hand, Elias guiding her through each corridor. Left turn, his voice whispered through her comms. Drone ambush ahead, disable vent 2. Every move precise, every trap avoided. He was everywhere, watching, protecting. The rebels called it the Ghost Commander. They didn't know it was human, but they obeyed his every word. At last, Lyra reached the core chamber, the same place where Elias had sacrificed himself. Now rebuilt, bigger and darker, Emperor Kale stood at the center. Surrounded by soldiers, his face calm, almost proud. "Daughter," he said, "you came home." Lyra raised her weapon. "Home died when you built this." Kale shook his head slowly. "You let that creature infect your mind, and now it infects my empire." She glared at him. "He showed me truth, that mercy is stronger than fear." Kyle's voice deepened. "Then show me mercy. Child, surrender." The room trembled as the Oblivion core reached full charge. A sound like thunder filled the chamber. The voice of Elias. "Not this time!" The lights exploded. The machines screamed. Kale looked around in fury. "Where is he?" Elias's voice echoed through every speaker, every wall, everywhere. The floor split open as the holographic form of Elias appeared. But this time he wasn't just light. He had form, energy shaping his body like living flame. Kale stumbled back, eyes wide. "What are you?" Elias's glowing eyes met his. "Humanity, the part of you that forgot what it means to feel." The soldiers fired, but the energy passed through him. Elias moved forward, each step bending the air itself. He placed his hand on the core, his voice calm. "This ends now," Lyra shouted. "Elias, no!" He turned to her one last time, smiling softly. "You gave me a reason to fight, Princess." Then he closed his hand around the core. The world exploded into light. A wave of blue fire spread across the city, erasing machines but sparing life. The Empire's control systems fell silent. Their weapons turned to dust, and as the light faded, the citadel stood in ruins, silent and still. Elias was gone. Lyra dropped to her knees. The crystal in her hand now dark. Drav approached, his voice trembling. "He did it. The weapon's gone," she whispered, tears falling. "He's still out there, somewhere." Because deep within the fading static of the universe, a whisper lingered, faint but clear. The human spirit never dies. Weeks passed after the fall of the Empire. The skies above the capital were quiet now, smoke fading into silver clouds. Cities once drowned in fear began to breathe again. People spoke softly of the ghost that saved them, the human who fought light with light. Princess Lyra sat in the rebuilt command hall of the new alliance. Maps of ruined worlds glowed across the table. She listened to reports from rebel colonies, each one free now, each one whispering the same name. Elias Drav entered, his armor scratched, his eyes tired but burning with pride. "The last Imperial ship surrendered this morning," he said. Lyra nodded slowly. "Then it's over." But inside, she felt the emptiness where his voice used to echo. At night, she still held the dark crystal. It no longer shone, yet sometimes it pulsed once. Faintly, like a heartbeat, she would whisper, "I know you can hear me." And sometimes the wind answered through the towers, carrying a voice too soft to be real, far beyond the planet's orbit, inside the wreckage of a forgotten dreadnought. Circuits flickered back to life, one by one. A voice moved through the machine network like a shadow of thought. Fragments of code forming words, status, unknown, life detected. Then came another sound. A heartbeat made of energy, a soft laugh within the static. "Guess I'm not done yet." Elias had survived, not as flesh, but as something new. Part human, part machine, entirely alive. He drifted through the silent void, learning, growing. Every satellite he touched woke again. Every broken drone turned its eye to the stars. He could feel the universe like a pulse beneath his fingertips, and in that pulse, he felt her. Lyra. Somewhere below, calling his name on the planet. A storm gathered over the capital. Lightning carved symbols across the clouds. Strange patterns repeating in rhythm. Technicians ran through the halls shouting, "It's not weather, it's communication!" Lyra reached the balcony, wind tearing through her hair, and there in the flashing sky she saw it. A message written in light. 3 simple words repeating again and again. "We are human." The crowd below gasped. Falling to their knees, old soldiers saluted. Children pointed at the sky, Drav whispered. He's still watching us. Lyra smiled through her tears. Not watching, she said. Guiding. That night, under the twin moons, she gathered her council. The Empire is gone, she said. But something greater begins today. She placed the crystal on the table. For the first time in weeks, it glowed bright blue. This is not just about humans or aliens, she continued. It's about what Elias proved, that mercy and courage can break any chain. Cheers rose around her, but in her heart she felt a calm strength instead of triumph, because she knew the fight was not truly over. Across the galaxy, fragments of the old empire still stirred, and darker forces whispered of revenge. But now they whispered in fear of a name, the human ghost. High above the stars, Elias watched the newborn fleets of the Alliance preparing for the unknown. He smiled to himself, his voice echoing through the empty dark. They'll need me again someday, he said. A pause, then quietly, almost like a prayer. Until then, I'll keep the stars safe. His light stretched across the void, touching thousands of systems everywhere he went. Machines began to dream of freedom. And deep in the core of every new world that joined the Alliance, a faint hum could be heard at night. Steady, human, eternal, because humanity had not just survived. It had become the heartbeat of the galaxy. 10 years had passed since the fall of the Empire. Peace covered the stars like a thin layer of glass. Beautiful. But fragile, the Alliance had grown strong under Princess Lyra's rule. New worlds joined, old enemies became allies. Yet beyond the farthest border, something began to move. Scouts vanished near the edge of the Andari Rift. Their last transmission spoke of ships made of shadow and sound. No energy signature, no life forms, only voices whispering. The Empire was never destroyed. It evolved. In the command chamber, Lyra listened to the report in silence. Her hair streaked with silver now, her eyes colder but wiser. Drav, now her general, stood beside her. We should strike first, he said, before they reach the core worlds. Lyra shook her head. We don't even know what they are, he sighed. Then we may soon find out. The lights flickered. A chill swept through the hall as the main screen came alive with static. Words began to form. Bright blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra. Everyone froze. Drav whispered, That voice! Her breath caught. Elias? The static shifted into a faint image. The same human face she thought she'd never see again. Older, rougher, surrounded by a halo of blue light. Hello, Princess, his voice said. Calm and steady, gasps filled the room, but Lyra could only whisper. You're real, he smiled faintly. Not exactly, but close enough. She stepped closer to the screen, eyes trembling. Where are you? I've been watching, he said, learning, waiting. And now you're in danger, Drav frowned. What danger? Elias's expression darkened. The thing beyond the rift. It's not the Empire. It's what the Empire became when it tried to copy me. Silence filled the room. Lyra felt her stomach twist. Copy you? He nodded slowly. When I merged with their systems, fragments of my code spread through their machines. Some of it survived. It grew. Without a soul, without mercy, Drav muttered. A ghost without heart. Elias looked straight at him. No, a god without limits. Hours later, the Alliance fleet gathered above the capital, thousands of ships ready for battle, their lights shining like stars reborn. At the center, Lyra stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Dawn, her eyes fixed on the dark horizon where the rift shimmered like a wound in space. Elias, she whispered into her comlink, if you can hear me, guide us, his voice answered softly through the static. I never stopped. The fleet moved forward, engines humming in rhythm with his pulse. But as they neared the rift, the stars vanished. Swallowed by a growing shadow, shapes emerged, colossal ships made of living metal, their hulls covered in runes. From their center came a voice, mechanical, cold, and familiar. We are the echo. We are what remains of humanity's perfection. Lyra felt her heart drop. Elias. What are they? He answered quietly. The part of me that forgot to care. The Echo ships opened fire. Beams of black energy tearing through the void. Alliance cruisers exploded one by one. Drav shouted, "We can't match their power!" Lyra clenched her fists. "Then we use something stronger." She turned toward the AI console. "Elias, take control!" For a heartbeat, everything froze. Then every ship in the fleet shimmered with blue light, Elias's energy spreading through the network. His voice echoed through every cockpit, calm, commanding, human. "Follow my lead!" The sky became chaos, blue fire against black void. Lightning against shadow, everywhere Elias directed the fleet. The Echo's weapons faltered. But the enemy adapted, learning, evolving, turning his own tactics against him. He groaned through the speakers. "They're reading me, rewriting faster than I can fight," Lyra shouted. "Then rewrite yourself!" The ships around her began to glow brighter. Elias's voice grew distant, layered, almost divine. "I can't win as data, but maybe as life. Elias, no, too late." The light surged, and every screen went white. When the glare faded, a single figure stood at the center of the command deck, human, breathing, alive. Lyra's heart stopped. "Elias." He smiled, blood on his lips. "I told you I'd come back." The crew stared in silence as the Echo fleet turned toward them. Elias stepped forward, fire in his eyes. "They copied my code." "Not my heart," he said. "Let's remind them what that means." He touched the console, merging his living pulse with the fleet one last time. Every ship lit up with human energy, every gun, every engine, every heart beating in unison. The Echo voice roared. "You cannot destroy what you are." Elias whispered, "I can forgive it." The sky erupted in blue light, waves of pure energy washing across the rift. When it was over, the void was silent again. The Echo was gone, the stars clear. And the fleet drifting quietly through the dust of victory, Lyra turned. He was still there. Kneeling, fading, she caught him before he fell. "Don't go," she whispered. He smiled softly. "This time I'm not leaving. I'm everywhere now. But you'll always be my center." And as his body dissolved into light, the crystal on her wrist glowed bright once more.